Hi everyone, welcome to Ground Zero. This is the first video lecture in the HEAL 118 series, getting started with Google Sheets. I'm going to take you through what's covered in this video, starting with creating a Google Sheet. So if you have some familiarity with MS Excel or even Google Sheets, you're in good company, but not everyone does. So this is a good introductory video for those who don't have experience using Google Sheets. And that begins with actually how to open one and get started. So there are 3 ways to do that. I'm going to take you through the 3 options, and that includes starting a blank spreadsheet, creating a spreadsheet from a template, and importing an existing spreadsheet from something like MS Excel. We're also going to cover managing sheets. Now, familiarizing yourself with the navigation of a spreadsheet is really important, and Google Sheets has a unique interface that is a little bit different than MS Excel if you are used to using Excel. You also need to know how to create new sheets. These are the tabs at the bottom of Google Sheets. How do you do that? How do you move them around? We're going to do that too. How do you rename and categorize your sheets? How does that work? And then also, how do you select and filter your cells, your rows and columns? In fact, what are cells, rows, and columns? We're going to work on that. And finally, how do you work on the view of your data? There's a lot you can do to manipulate how you look at your data, what rows and columns you can see and not see. You can even change the grid line appearance of your interface. And finally, we're going to work on manipulating the outward appearance and the inward format of your data. So what does it look like in terms of color, font, etc.? What is the format of your data? So if it's a date, is it formatted as a date? And we're also going to work on moving things around. So can we move cells, columns, and rows around? Yes, you can. How do you do that without messing things up? And can you insert and delete those things without also messing up your data? Yes, you can. We're going to do that too. Okay, so that's what's covered in this video. A quick note for Mac users, since some of you may use a Mac. I don't. I use a PC. And so there are a couple words I'm going to use that won't match what you have on your keyboard. Specifically, when I say the Control key, you need to be using your Command key. This is also called the Apple or Open Apple key. And so an example, pasting function. I often use the Control V function. You'll have to use your Command V. So just keep that in mind as you hear me throughout this video. There may be other differences, so if you're struggling there, I will try to note those differences as we go forward. All right, let's get started. All right, everyone, let's get to it. So what you see on your screen right now is a view of Google Drive. This is my setup for my own drive, and you can see that I am in my drive and I'm in my folder for this class, HEAL 518. Now, if you don't already have a Google account, you will need one for our class. So a couple things to note about how Google Drive is set up. First of all, your account is all controlled here. So if you want to change anything about your account, you'll need to click on your face or the little bubble here. And your settings are in this little gear box here. So you need to know where that is. And you also need to note a couple things here. There are 2 little bubbles here. The first is you can change the view of your drive by just clicking the grid view here. So some people like the tiles. And you can do this for your files too, or to have a list like this. And you can reorder by clicking this up and down arrow next to the name. Now I like them ordered like this so I can see the order of the weeks, and that's helpful. So in getting started with creating my spreadsheets, one other thing. If you want to see the details of what you're doing and things you've recently done, you can also click this little eye. Good to know. All right, if I want to open a sheet, a couple things I can do. There's so many different ways you can do things in the Google universe. Let me show you a couple of ways. The first is to create a blank spreadsheet by clicking the New button here. And this pops up a menu that allows me to go down to Google Sheets. And then if I hover over here, I can either click a blank spreadsheet or from a template. Now I'm going to go ahead and click blank spreadsheet. This will bring up a blank spreadsheet. Now, everything in Google is automatically saved as you go. So there's no save button that I have to press. So that's consistent across the Docs universe. So here, I can just name this, anything I want. So, Karen worksheet 1. And it will go ahead and save. Now, if you note up here, there's a little bit of a naming system here. You can always see your document status here by clicking here, and it will tell you that all your changes have been saved to your drive and that you can download this. This is nothing being synced or being in the process of being saved. So you're always secure here. So just note that if you want to check, that's how you do it. So I've named my worksheet, and that's how I open this first sheet. There's another way to create a blank worksheet. So I'm going to go X out of that. The other way I can do it is by going directly, instead of from Drive, to the Docs universe. So if you type in docs.google.com directly as a URL, it will take you to the Docs website, and you can navigate here by clicking on the hamburger to Sheets, and you can click the little rainbow here and click Untitled Spreadsheet. So that's another way you can do that. Now, what if I want to do a template? So you can again click the arrow here, go to Sheets, and go to From a Template. Now, Google always has a whole bunch of different templates that you can use. Now, for this course, you do not need to use templates, although I do want to point out you can do this because a lot of courses might actually, it might be useful to have a template. For example, if you want to have a to-do list for another course, look, this is a really nice to-do list. It's already been set up in a spreadsheet. Well, that's cool. It even has little check boxes, which I'll show you how to do in another video. So you can always do that. And again, it's a nice way to open a spreadsheet. Okay, so that's 2 ways to create a spreadsheet. The next way to do it is to import. All right, so you have to open a blank sheet to do this. So I go into my sheets here, and if I want to import something, I will go to File and click Import. All right, and I'm going to go to the Upload option here. I can select a file or I can drag. I prefer to upload here. So now I have to navigate to 518, and I'm going to go to my data folder here and choose, let's see, which type do I want? I'm going to choose this one on firearms, and I'm just going to open it here. Now it's going to give me this dialog box, and it's going to say import location, replace the spreadsheet. Now I want to note that if you were in an existing spreadsheet you didn't want to get rid of, you could decide to create a new spreadsheet, which is like a new spreadsheet like you see on your screen, or a new sheet. A new sheet just means one of those tabs down here, one of these things down here. Okay, so insert new sheet. That's what I'm going to do here. And you can import a theme too, which is really just how you look at the visuals here. It's a style choice. But I'm just going to go ahead and click Import Data so we can see what this looks like. All right, now this is a very basic looking spreadsheet. I want to go ahead and open what the original looked like so you can see what that looked like. And I get in Data. Now I opened this version here. This is the XLXS, which is a Excel workbook. You can see that it doesn't really look that different. Great. So I've just imported that. And you notice that this is now imported as a sheet within the first file, but I could have made it a new spreadsheet, which would have just showed up as a tab over here. And again, it's important to understand the difference in words. So we use spreadsheet and sheet interchangeably in sort of the spreadsheet world. The spreadsheet is the actual file itself, and but the spreadsheet has many sheets. So it's basically a spread of sheets. Fun, right? Okay. Yeah, not really interesting. Sorry about that. So those are 3 ways that you can open a new spreadsheet. Now that we know how to create new spreadsheets, let's take a deeper look at the interface. So I've created a new spreadsheet and I'm going to just open that. And you can see I have a little bit of data within my spreadsheet. So let me just share the anatomy here a little bit. So let's look at the top. First, I've got my file name up here, which I can change at any time. And again, I have some basic information contained up here. And I can star this as an important file, and that's maintained throughout the Google universe. This just allows me, if I want to click this button, it will allow me to move and save this somewhere else in the Google universe. I can click this button and put it in actually a new folder if I want to. So this allows me to save this wherever I want. And I can also, again, check the saved status. All my changes will be saved automatically. So this, again, I unconsciously do not have to worry about saving my file. Great. All right. Then underneath that is my navigation bar. This is a typical bar that you'll see in any Windows setup. And again, I've got my typical file structure, edit, view, insert. I've got a couple other menus here, format, data, tools, and then extensions and help. Okay, so over the time you'll get used to what's in each of these. I'm not going to go through every single option here, but there are a couple things that are important in each one of these that I'll go over in just a second. But let's look at the lower anatomy here. So then under here you have a menu, and these are commands. Okay, so this is what we call kind of a ribbon. Underneath here is a ribbon, and these are commands that have been added to the ribbon in a menu. Okay, fun language that we use to describe how things are set up in an interface, but that's how it works. Great. On the right side here, you've got a couple things that allow you to interact with the outside world. In addition to you staring at yourself, fun times. You have your comment history. If this was shared with someone externally, you could actually open this and add a comment by clicking Add a comment. Cancel. You can X out of this. You can also present this to a meeting by clicking this button. And you can share this. So if I wanted to share this sheet with someone else, I can share it with specific people by just typing their name. Or I could get a direct link. So I can change this to anyone with the link. So this can be sent out. Or I can click that and change it to some other level. So I can restrict this again to people who have only people added can open with the link. Right now I'm just going to put anyone with the link. And you can change the status of viewer, commenter, editor. So people who can view can only look at the document and copy it, and then they can edit their own document. You can also comment on it but not edit. And then you can edit the document. So if I change this to editor, now anyone with the link can then edit the document. You can click done. You can copy this too, and now you can send this out to your friends, colleagues. Okay, so that gives you a little bit about the top of the window. Okay, and the right side, of course, this is the Google universe and allows you to see all of your other things, for example, your calendar, so on. At the bottom here, you have things pertaining to the sheets. So what you're staring at right now is a sheet. The spreadsheet, again, is the actual file, but the file contains sheets. So your spreadsheet contains sheets that are spread out. Fun times. So right now we're looking at sheet number 1, and I don't have any other sheets. So right now if I click this hamburger, I'm only going to see sheet 1. But if I wanted to create a new sheet, I just click this number. Automatically sheet 2 will come up. I can click it again, sheet 3, and they will automatically be numbered. I can click on these twice. So if I double click, left double click, I can get sheet 3 to pop up here, and I can just change it to, for example, people. I don't want to put people's names in a spreadsheet, and I can put my name. I can put, I don't know, somebody else's name. I can put, I'm just putting people I know. These are names of faculty members I actually know. All right, and so on and so forth. So these are some names I put in this file, and again, I've named this by double-clicking, and you can change this at any time by left double-clicking. Same for this file, I can do the same thing, and I can, again, put colors here, and then put, red, blue, yellow, good primary colors, green, secondary colors. Now I don't remember my secondary colors, so there we go, and so on. And this might be my main sheet, and this could be renamed something else here, so primary data or something like that. So a couple things here. Now that I have sheets, I can click this hamburger and I can see all of my sheets here. Great, awesome. I can also click this little down arrow here, and you'll note that options fly up, and I can see that I can change things. For example, I can delete the sheet if I don't want it. I can duplicate the sheet. So now I have a copy of the sheet. If I hold and left click this, I can move this around. So again, if I left click and hold, I now can move the sheet around and reorder it in the sheet order here. But I've made a copy of it by, again, clicking this lower button and clicking duplicate. I can also copy this to a new spreadsheet or an existing spreadsheet. So I can put this into a new file or make a new spreadsheet. Again, the difference between a spreadsheet and a sheet is really important here. You can rename this, or I can change the tab color here to something more exciting, like this really awesome fuchsia color, which my daughter would really like. Let's face it, I really like this color. All right, so I've got this copy here, and let's just look at this again. I can also incrementally move this and quite nudge these sheets right or left, so that move that right, for example, if I don't want to just left click and hold and move it around myself. Okay, and if I want to delete this outright, I can just go up here and delete it. I can also protect it, which just means I can add a password to it. So I can, for example, add a description and then set permissions for people, but we will not do that today. But that's something you can do in the future. You can also hide the sheet if you want. If you want, for example, to set different levels of permission for different people who have access to this sheet, you can hide the sheet temporarily while you are working on it, and then later on give people permission. So that's a way to kind of allow people access to other parts of your spreadsheet, but not to the whole spreadsheet. It's a really nice feature if you're working on a specific part of it. Okay, so now we know the navigation and menu, the ribbons where everything is on the top, but let's look over here where my face is. I want to move myself up a little bit here. Now, you'll note we have a bar that moves things left and right. Now, what do we have here on the left and right? So if you're familiar with spreadsheets and sheets in general, you'll know things are these little individual boxes are called cells. I'm highlighting individual cells. Cells organized vertically are columns, and cells organized horizontally are rows. Good times. You can move this bar, the scrolling bar, to kind of move things around, and they're ordered. Columns are always in letters, rows are always numbered. You want to highlight the entire sheet, you can just press this little box here, and up here is called the formula bar, where you can enter formulas so that you can change things in cells. For example, if I want to sum everything here, I can just sum everything above here, and I have just summed everything here. We're going to go over functions in a little bit, but you can see the function is actually contained in this box here. Good stuff. All right. At the bottom here, you also see that I have a little flyout box called Explore, and if I open that, it will allow me to do a little bit more action to the sheet that I'm looking at, including some formatting, analysis, and I can even ask questions about the data, which is a relatively new feature in Sheets, which we'll explore later on in this course. All right, that's a little bit about sort of thinking about the anatomy. Let's look again at the navigation. A few things here to note. In the file menu, just a few things here that are important. First of all, if you want to download this sheet, you can by just going here, download, and you can actually download this in several different formats. The most important format is Excel, followed by a CSV file, which is another way you can read files into a spreadsheet. If you want to use other formats, you can, but those are the most important ones. You can also make a copy of this by making a copy of it, and then you can put it in a different folder within the universe that you have here. So I'm not going to do that now, but you can. All right. Okay. You can also move this within this menu. You can move your file, and you can add a shortcut to your drive. If you want to shortcut this, you're like, oh, I just need to get at this later. I need to shortcut it right now, and I don't want to do that later on. You can just shortcut it, which is really nice. You can also email and share with others. In the editing, this is very similar to other editing functions, but I just want to point out that you can use Control-Z, Control-Y, Control-X, Control-C, and Control-V. It's Command for the Mac. To do all the other things you would do in the Office suite, Office 365, so it's the same. For view, you can do quite a few things here. For example, the view, you can change what you can see and not see. So for example, if you don't want to see the formula bar here, this formula bar, you can get rid of it by unchecking it. Now put it back. And see, it went away. You can also change the grid lines. So if I don't want to see grid lines, I can turn those off, which is a little bit spooky, but some people prefer that view. I'm going to put those back on. I can also, from the viewpoint, change what I want to see at the top. So if I want to freeze the rows, I can freeze up to 1, 2, or up to how many ever rows that I have populated. So you can see I have populated up to row 15 here. It will only allow me to freeze up to the row for which I have data, and that is for row 15, which is great. Okay. All right, so how do I select data as well? So selecting data is pretty easy. I'm left clicking here just once in the cell. So if I want to select a cell individually, I can do that. I can also left click and hold and then highlight different sections or cells by just dragging my mouse here. So that is how I select things, which is great. I can also filter this data. So if I want to do that, a simple, quick way to do that is to highlight the data I want to filter. And here I'm just going to do that to this table here. I have highlighted those cells, and I'm going to go up here to my menu, going up to data, and I'm going to just click Create a Filter. And you'll note that it just pop up. There's a pop-up of color difference, so you can see if I hover over on ID here, ID is not a meaningful filter, but it might be in a particular project. But say I want to filter based on sex assigned at birth here. I can click here, and if I click on the filter caret here, I can actually filter by different values. I can actually sort by going alphabetical in ascending or descending order, or I can just say I want to display only those with the status of female. Click OK, and it'll now filter my table to show only those with female designation. So that's just a quick way to do filtering. There are a lot of other sophisticated ways to filter and also to add what we call slicers, which I can show you at another time in this class. All right, we are in the home stretch here. We're going to look at manipulating the view of our data and how we look at our data both internally and externally. What I mean by that is our formatting. Formatting can look at the color and the outward presentation as much as it is the internal. So let's look at the outward. And I am just going to go ahead and turn off some of these filters here. Okay, so I'm just going to remove the filter by going up to data and clicking remove filter. Okay. Now you'll note in my spreadsheet I have a couple different things. I've got two different tables going on. And I have a little bit of data over here and a little bit of data over here. They're not all organized. I first want to get all my data in one place, and to do that I have to move my data around. And so you can see I've got some data that it's not quite in the same order as this data. This data has been filtered and made a little bit different. So that's a bit of a pain. Great. And so I want to filter this data too, and I want to do it so that it is ordered in a specific way. And so I might want to just sort of figure that out. There's a couple different ways you can do that, but just to get some practice in moving data. So this is ID number 1. And so I want to get the program start date up here. So if I want to move a cell individually, I highlight the cell, and you can see if I hover over any of the borders, I can move it. But if I have it inside the cell, I can't do that. So I'm going to move this up here. Great. And because this is not in the right order, I'm going to take ID number 1 here. And again, just to get practice at this, this is number 1. So number 1 is this row. Number 2 is this row. So I'm going to, number 2 is down here. Number 5 is going to be the top one. Number 7 is down here. And number 25 is up here. Now, normally you wouldn't do it like this, but I wanted to just show you how you can move these cells. And you can also move entire columns by highlighting the entire column by clicking on the letter at the top of the column, and you can highlight and then hover again over the column and move it wherever you want to go. Again, you can move it back here. I'm going to go ahead now and delete this column by, again, doing the same thing, left clicking the top here, and then I'm going to right click and choose delete column. Now, if I think that's a mistake, I can click Control Z or Command Z to get it back. And here I'm going to do Command Y or Control Y to get it back. All right, so now I've got all of my stuff here. And again, the normal way you would do this is you would filter that column. If you had tons of data, you wouldn't individually move these. You would filter it so the order would be in the right order. You'd filter this table, you'd filter that table, and you'd put it together. Okay, so here I've got some data here. Now, internally, each of these different cells has a format. To see the format of your data, you'll go to Format in the menu, and you'll note that all the formats here are listed. You can format the internal format in terms of whether this is a number. It might also be text. So this is actually automatic. It's showing up here as a number, which is fine. But here, this is text. So if I go back up here, and it's showing as automatic, but I can just say that this is plain text. It's plain text showing up here. I'm going to change the format to plain text so that it recognizes it as text. Similarly, this is a date. So let's see if it automatically recognizes it as a date. Yes, it does. So you can change the different orientations. For example, if I want to put the date and time here, it would add the time. I had no such time added, so that, I'm just going to Control Z that out. But again, the format of this can be changed simply by going to the Format menu and then dropping down and going to this first item here. This is important because you want to make sure your data set has the correct format. If you bring your data into another, for example, another software like a statistical package, the data that you bring in by column has to be in the same format, otherwise it creates problems in the analysis. So this is really, really key. Another thing that I noticed that's off here is that, apart from the look and feel of this, some of the numbers don't have the same decimal points. So in the lower ribbon here, you can see that you can change the type of number that's presented, and then including the number of decimal points. So if I wanted to increase the number of decimal points and make that even, I could. But I highlighted all of them, where only one of them needed to change. So here I'm just going to highlight this one cell and increase it so that it has a 0. By default, it rounds down so that there's no decimal point in Google Sheets. So that's something to know about. Okay. Similarly, if this was a percent and I wanted to make this a percent, you can change that to a percent. But note that because it's assuming it's a percent, it's going to automatically multiply by 100, and it will mess that up. So it assumes that that isn't, that it is a percent, and so it will do that. So for example, it would have to be 0.047 to then be 4.7%. Okay. All right, so there you can also change this into currency. So if this was a dollar, you could change that there And again, Control Z will change that out. So you can change those formats. And again, the formatting shortcut here is also really useful if you don't feel like clicking up here. I don't know why they do that. All right, formatting. Now this table's a bit plain to look at, but in order to make it a little bit more presentable so it's more readable, you can do a couple things. You can change the size of the font to be larger. You can make things bold or not bold. You can use the strike through function. You can use italicize and so on and so forth. You can change the color and so on. But what I like to do is always change the top of the table to bold, so it stands out as the name of the variable. The column represents the actual variable, whatever kind of data is being represented, and the rows are individuals. The rows are individuals. So ID number 5 represents an individual who weighs 178 pounds, who has an HbA1c value of 4.7, who is female at birth, and started the program on the 28th of March in 2021. Great, we've got one set of data for one individual, and then we have data for 5 different people. All right, so let's left justify this. We're going to left justify by going over here and then left justifying all the data. And now it looks much cleaner. Great. But maybe I don't want all of that to be left justified. Maybe I want the dates to be center justified. One thing I will notice that it's hard to use some of the shortcuts from Office 365 to do alignment in Google Sheets. So you actually do have to do alignments here. These shortcuts don't work the same. So that's something to note. All right. You can also, if you don't like the way that this looks, you can change the rotation. You have some options. For example, you can change the rotation of your text if you want to. You can change things up and down like this if you want to, which may or may not make it more readable. Okay. Another thing you can do is you can create a field to check things off if you want to. I just wanted to make sure that you know that this is an option. For example, you can add a checkbox here. If you are doing data entry and you want to just make sure that you've finished entering data, you can do that. There's a way to do that. All right, but now we've done some work there. So another thing you can do is, if you do not like the fact that this runs over to another column, you can do text wrapping, which is this little symbol here. And if you look at this little kind of curved option, that is called wrap, and that will wrap your text. Another thing you can do is just click in between the columns here, and it will automatically resize based on the largest item within the cells in that column. I'm going to do that here too, so you can see that this resizes, which is really nice. But of course it makes it really smushed. And then you can change the colors of things if you want to. You can change, for example, the color of your the fill of your cells, and you can make things different colors if you want to. You can add borders. There you go. I'm going to take those out and show you something else you can do. Underneath my little face here, you can go to the Explore tab, and you can use automatic formatting. This is really nice when you just want to use a simple data set and add some automatic formatting. So that's a really nice way to work that out. Okay. So I hope that you've got some basic understanding of how to use Google Docs from Google Spreadsheet from this tutorial. This is a very basic understanding of how to use this. So as you get into it, you'll get used to where things are, some differences from MS Excel and whatnot. So if you have a question, please let me know, and just work with it. One of the things that makes sense in getting used to software is to just practice, so move things around, put things in different places, practice highlighting things that you think are pretty basic, practice deleting stuff, moving things around like I just did, and then re-highlighting stuff. There's a lot of things that you can do to work on your craft. So just be aware there are things that you will have to practice to get good at, and you'll have to continue to remain good at. All right.